All right, so we are on page 6 of the Unit 8 packet. And last time on our previous lesson, we looked at different words and how different words can indicate either negative or positive. And we also talked about the integers. And if you look at this number line here, just to recap, there are kind of like three kind of groups of numbers that are integers. First is the positive whole numbers. So the whole numbers are all integers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on and so forth. 0, which is not negative or positive, that is also an integer. And also the opposites of the whole numbers, -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on, those are also integers. So we got the positive whole numbers, the opposites, and 0. And so what we use integers for, especially the negative ones and the positive, is sometimes to represent situations. And so that's what we're going to start off with today. We're going to look at some different situations and think about whether we'd use a negative integer or a positive integer or 0 to show that situation. For each one, we're also going to think about, well, what would 0 mean? Because 0 doesn't always mean there's a 0 amount. 0 might mean different things in a situation. So for example, number 1, it says a 10-yard loss. The key word there, I'm going to use a highlighter here. Key word is loss. So to write that as an integer, because loss is negative, we would write -10. Now the other part of this is to explain what 0 would mean. And so at the bottom, we might say 0 means 10-yard loss would be -10. 0 would mean just no gain. 0 means no gain on the play. So if this was like a football play, it just means they tried something and they just didn't go anywhere. It doesn't mean they're on the 0-yard line. It just means they didn't gain anything on that play. A positive would mean a positive gain. Negative would mean a loss. 0 just means they're staying where they are in the field. All right, let's look at this one. 4 inches of rain above normal. Above normal. Above would be the key word there. And above would mean a positive change in the positive direction. +4. 4 inches of rain above normal. Well, what would 0 mean? 0 wouldn't actually mean no rainfall. It would actually mean 0 means the normal amount. And that one's a little tough because when we think 0, again, we usually think nothing. However, 0 just means like no change from the normal amount. If it rains 4 inches above normal, well, if the normal is 2 inches and it rained 4 inches above normal, that would be a change of +4 or +4. If it rains 0 inches above normal, that just means it rained the normal amount for that particular day or month, depending on the time span. All right, let's check out number 3. $48 deposit into a bank account or savings bank. Deposit means you're putting money into the savings account, which means the savings account would increase in terms of how much money is in it. So this would actually be positive. So it'd be positive 48. Just gotta get a new pencil here. This one ran out of graphite. Sorry for the delay, but that would mean positive 48. Well, what would 0 mean? So if you put in $48 into your savings account, your account would go positive 48, would go up 48. 0 doesn't mean that there's no money in your account. That just means no change in your bank account. So if there was $100 in there and you didn't deposit any money, it doesn't mean that you have no money in there. It just means there's no change. It stays at whatever was in the bank account. All right, let's check out number 4. A gain of $2. Gain would be positive. This is more like a stock thing. So for this one, 0 means like a gain of $2 a share would mean each stock went up $2. 0 would mean the stock price stayed the same. And this one's kind of like, you wouldn't really be doing this in sixth grade, talking about stock market prices, but that's what it would mean. 0 means the stock market price stayed the same. So stock prices can change each day. A 0 would mean that not that it went to 0 or that it there's no value. It just means it didn't change at all. Okay. 10 degrees below 0. Below 0. 10 degrees below 0, that would be, below would be negative, right? So it would be negative 10. What would 0 mean? 0 degrees below 0. 0 means 0 degrees. Actually, for this one, 0 actually means 0. 0 degrees. So for the other one, 0 didn't necessarily mean 0, but for this one, if it's 10 degrees below 0, that 0 means 0. All right. 150 feet under sea level. Keyword there is under. That's going to indicate a negative number because it's under the sea. Just like, I think that was what, Little Mermaid, Under the Sea? Great song. So it's going to be negative 150. What would 0 mean? This one's also a little tricky. So 0 means if you're 150 feet under sea level, you're negative 150. If you're like 150 feet above sea level, you're positive 150. If you're at 0, in that case, 0 feet under sea level, that means sea level. You're not above or below it, you're at sea level. So that's what 0 mean in that situation. All right, the Bills scored 4 points higher than average. Go Bills. Go Bills. I guess the key word, it wouldn't be scored. I was first looking at scored, but actually be higher. Because if it said the Bills scored 4 points below average, then that word higher or below would indicate positive or negative. So this would be positive 4. And then what would 0 mean? 0 doesn't mean that the Bills scored 0 points. The Bills scored 0 points higher than average. That just means they scored the average number of points. Means Bills scored an average number of points. All right, last one here. Let's check out owe $9 to a friend. Oh, okay. You owe $9 to a friend. Owing something means you're kind of in the negative. You owe something, it's not your money. You have an obligation to give them money. So that would be negative, minus 9. If you owe $9 to a friend, that means you have minus or negative $9 that you have because you owe $9 to a friend. You're kind of behind there. So what would 0 mean? 0 means you owe nothing. You don't owe any money to your friend. 0 means you owe no money to your friend. Now, if your friend owes you money, that would mean that you're in the positive. Your friend would be in the negative. So that kind of shows the two sides of that. So again, it's important to think about the key word, but it's also sometimes important to think about what would 0 mean, because 0 doesn't always mean 0 in these situations. Could mean something a little different. All right, the last thing we're going to look at is graphing. And this is actually kind of really straightforward. So integers can be graphed on a number line, either horizontally or vertically. And we're going to look at horizontal ones, side-to-side ones today. And to put a point on the number line, we're just going to draw a point right on the number line. And sometimes you'll see a set of integers. And sets of integers will look like this, where you have braces, like that. So that'll mean you're putting 3 points on the graph. So we'll start, or 3 or more, or 2 or more, really. So let's start with the first one here, negative 7. Well, where would negative 7 be? If you start at 0, -7 would be to the left, and as these numbers keep going to the left, they get less and less. So we're just going to put a point right on -7. And that's it. That's it for that one. All right, so this is actually a set of numbers here. This is actually a set of numbers, -4, 2, and -1. We're going to mark those all on the graph. And when I mark one, I'm going to cross it off just to make sure I have all the numbers on there that I need. So -4, we'll start at -4, put a point there, cross it off. 2 would be in the positive side, 2. And -1 would be in the negative side, -1. So you can see those points are clearly marked. We've got all three. We're good. What's nice about these numbers, or what's interesting, is that they're all 3 apart. It's kind of nice they spaced them out. Let's check out this next set of numbers, 0, 2, and -3. So 0 would, of course, be at 0. Should be no surprise there. 2 is right here to the right of 0, because that's where the positives are, and -3 would be to the left of 0. -3 seems to be farther away from 0 than 2 would be. It looks like it's 1 farther away from 0. All right, I got to cross out that 2 because I graphed it. The next set of numbers is 4 numbers, -3, 0, -2, and 4. Let's graph those. Start with -3. It's going to go to the left of 0. It's 3 away from 0 to the left. 0 would be 0, of course. -2 would be to the left of 0, the negatives, and 4 would be to the right of 0. Okay. So it looks like 4 is farthest from 0 than either -2 and -3. 4 would be the greatest number as well because it's the farthest to the right. All right, let's see. We got 4 numbers here as well, 2 positives, 2 negatives. Let's start with 8. Let's put 8 on there. 8's going to go on the positive side. -6 is going to go to the left of 0. -9 would be to the left of 0 and to the left of -6. And then 5 would be, of course, to the right of 0. Now, one thing to notice or to note is that the farther you get from 0 in the negatives, the less the number is, the less the value the number is. So -9 is less than -6. You can tell because -9 is farther away from 0 than -6. It's kind of the opposite when you look at the positives. 8 is the greater number because it's farther from 0. And the farther you get from 0 on the positive side, the more value the number has. So the opposites or the positives and negatives kind of have opposite values when they move away from 0. Let's talk about this one here. Elena and her dad played golf on 4 different days. The data set, -1, 1, +1, -3, +2, show Elena's scores in relation to par. Graph the scores, explain the meaning of 0. So if you're familiar with golf, you're kind of familiar with scores here. But with these scores, the more negative you are, the better your score is. So golf is a little unique in that way. So -1, we'll graph these first, and we'll talk about what 0 would mean. -1 would go here. That's a good round because that means she got 1 less stroke than the average. +1, also, it's pretty good. She got just 1 more stroke than the average person would get. -3 would be a really good score. That's 3 strokes less than normal, or than par, what they call it in golf, they call it par. And +2 would be on the right side of 0. So even though like 2 has the highest value, -3 is the best score in golf because it's 3 below. You can kind of think of it like 3 below average. It took her 3 less shots than normal to get the ball in the hole. So right here, what would 0 mean? In this case, 0 means, and if you're familiar with golf, you're probably more familiar with this word. 0 would mean par. It's kind of like the average score. So it doesn't mean like you got the ball in without hitting it, like you got it in 0 strokes. It just meant Like if it was a par 3, you got it in 3 shots. If it was a par 5, which is a longer hole, you would have gotten it in 5 shots. So that's what 0 would mean there. That one would probably only make sense if you're somewhat familiar with golf. Okie dokes. Okay, these ones below, let's try these here. You can try them on your own. If you want to pause and try these, you can. Let's check these out. 15-yard gain. Well, what would the key word be? Of course, the key word would be gain. So we're going to highlight that thing. Gain would be positive, so it would be positive 15. What would 0 mean? Well, 0 means no gain at all. You stay where you are. 0 means no gain on the play. Okay. That's kind of like the football one we were talking about earlier. I think it was a 10-yard loss. So again, 0 would mean the same thing. You just don't move from where you were. Loss of 2 hours. Oh no. Loss of 2 hours. Loss would be the key word. That would be negative. -2. What would 0 mean? Now, I guess I don't know what this means, loss of 2 hours. I don't know what situation this would be. 0 means no time lost, maybe. No time lost. Like maybe you were going on a road trip and you took a wrong turn and you lost 2 hours of your travel time. 0 would just mean like you're on track. You're on track to get there in time. You've lost no time, or you don't have to make any up. All right. Now these are a little different because the graph is blank, and we have to put the numbers in there. Now, when you have negatives and positives, it's often good to start with the number that has the least value and count up from there. So the number with the least value here is -2. So I'm actually going to start with -2. The next number would be -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's kind of hard to see those dashes. And then we're just going to put a point at -2 that has the least value. That's why I started with that point, because sometimes when you're graphing negatives and positives, if I started with 0 in the middle, in this case it would work because -2 would be on there. But if you just start with 0 in the middle, sometimes you might not be able to fit all the numbers. So let's check this one here. We got -2, 1, and 0. Let's start with the one with the least value and then go up from there. So that would be -2. After that would be -1, then 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll start with -2. We'll graph that. Then 1, graph that, and then 0. All right, last one here. This is kind of like the one with Elena and her dad, although this one might be more familiar. It's like a board game. So the data set plus +3, -2. I'm sorry, +3, -1, -2, +1. Show the moves a player made forward or backward in a board game. So, of course, the forward would probably be the positive, backward would be negative. Graph the moves the player made. Explain the meaning of 0. Let's first graph them, okay? We'll start with the most negative number, the one with the least value, which would be, I'm just looking at the negative numbers, -1, -2. We'll start with -2 because that has the least value. Then we'll go up from there. -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll graph each point. We'll start with +3. And then -1, -2, and +1. So these numbers, the positive numbers are when you move forward. The negative numbers are when you move backward. So what would 0 mean? What would 0 mean? If she took a turn, if whoever's playing took a turn and went 0, that means not that they're starting from the beginning, but 0 means the player didn't move. That means they just stayed in wherever they were. The player didn't move. All right. So again, say we thought about different situations and whether or not we could use a negative or positive integer. We also thought about what would 0 mean in certain situations. because zero, again, often does, in situations like this, doesn't necessarily mean you have nothing or you're starting from the beginning. It might mean something different. And we also took a little bit of time to graph. So hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know, and I hope to see you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.